What's going on with the younger generations of today? They aren't buying houses, they are leaving jobs after just a few months, they're even texting people that are in the same room with them. While there are quite a few differences, there are at least few similarities between the younger generations of today and perhaps those of prior periods. First and foremost on that list is that the younger generations feel like the older generations are somewhat useless and the knowledge that they have is outdated. The popular catchphrase, "Okay, boomer," but what hasn't changed is how to build wealth. It isn't about following the latest get-rich-quick scheme on YouTube or perfecting or finding the best side hustle that we hear so much about today. It's really following one of a few paths that have been around for a long time and that will always be around. In this video, I'll talk to you about a few different paths you can follow, and the one that ultimately resonated the most for me and has put me on what I consider to be a path to be able to build wealth. First off, what is generational wealth? I'm sure different people have different definitions. However, my definition of generational wealth is really about having enough assets, whether it's cash or real estate or whatever, but having enough assets to pass down to future generations, make a bit of difference in their life. This isn't maybe about $10,000 or $50,000 that allow them to put a down payment on a house, but maybe it's enough for them to purchase a house outright. It's going to be different for other people, but again, the main concept is having enough to pass on to not only your kids, but perhaps even generations beyond that. My career goals for a long time have been to generate a level of financial success that will allow me to give back. You know, I really want to give back to the community in ways that are meaningful to me. I also wanted to build a career such that I had a seat at the table. If I wasn't making the decisions, I at least wanted to be part of the decision-making process. In thinking through the different paths to achieve my career objectives, there are definitely obvious ones. I knew I was never gonna be a professional athlete. I knew that I would never be a pop star or a musician or an actor or anything along those lines. Eliminating those, there are still a few obvious choices. The first one is, start your own business. Come up with an idea for a better mousetrap or a killer app or some other new product or service. Unfortunately, that really wasn't me either. Now I had all these ideas of what it would take, being a movie star or an athlete, starting your own business, and I didn't really feel like I could do any of those. The only path that I knew of that remained was rising through the ranks of a company and ultimately getting to be a senior vice president or perhaps even CEO. That was really the only path that I felt like I could be successful on, and so that's the one that I embarked on. However, in grad school, I realized that there was another path that, in my view, was still capable of generating the type of return that I would want, but had a little bit more surety in the idea of, could I actually achieve this myself, or was this another pipe dream? This alternative path was buying a business. Before we move on, I think it's important to talk about the concept of risk and reward. In most financial theory, if you want a higher return, you need to be able to take, not necessarily need to be able to take more risk, but you're required to take more risk. That's very evident in the different paths that I was talking about. Talk about a lot of people that have tried that and failed. We've all heard the stats about how many high school football players go on to be playing the NFL, or how many actors or actresses out there that never even make it on the screen, even if it's just like a commercial or something along those lines. So sure, there's great rewards, but the risk is very high because so many people do not get to that level of reward that people are seeking. The same thing in the idea of starting a business or getting to be CEO. Starting a business, the vast majority of businesses that people start ultimately fail. High rate of failure there as well. The rewards are there. In terms of simply aspiring to company management or upper management of a company, still difficult, but the odds of success are much higher, albeit the return that you can expect would be lower, commensurate with that reduced risk. Though I didn't know the term at the time, or perhaps the term hadn't even been invented or popularized, but what I'm talking about is entrepreneurship through acquisition. It's a person that has the entrepreneurial drive but doesn't necessarily have the ideas or desire to start a business from scratch. That was absolutely, me to a T. So you might want to ask me this: why is business ownership a path to generational wealth? I think there are 4 different components or aspects or criteria that you must achieve in order to generate the wealth that we're talking about here. And again, I'm not talking about being a billionaire or anything along those lines. I'm talking about having financial stability, financial security, and enough assets to pass on to your kids to help give them a little bit of a leg up. Again, I'm not even talking about millions and millions of dollars here. Regardless, what I consider to be one of the biggest challenges on the path to business ownership is that it's risky. Whenever my partner and I were buying our first business, I can't even tell you how many businesses we looked at. It took us maybe over 2 years. I left one job, I started searching for a business full time, got very close, it didn't close. I decided needed to actually have a salary again, started working full time, kind of searching for a business to buy on the side. And while working full time and trying to find a business, was lucky enough or persistent enough or whatever to ultimately be able to buy that first business. But it's hard. And also what I found out afterwards is, I'd be talking to various people and I'd tell them that I bought a business and they just would look at me and say, wow, you're just like very brave, or you just have to be able to ignore all the risks and whatnot in order to actually be able to sign on the dotted line. And some of those early conversations were a little bit eye-opening because I didn't view what I was doing as inherently very risky. On the flip side, I viewed not trying to buy a business as risky personally because I hated a lot of the job I was in. Additionally, I think this perception that a job in corporate America is safe, but I don't consider jobs in corporate America safe at all. I guess what this comes down to is that, sure, it's risky. It just depends on the type of risk tolerance a person has, and you really need to evaluate whether or not you have that type of risk tolerance if you want to consider buying a business. The second challenge to buying a business is that it's stressful. It's not only stressful going through the process of buying a business, but once you actually buy the business and are running it or sitting around the board, it's stressful too. You have a lot of employees that report to you. There are personnel issues that come up. Also at the end of the day, you have to understand that whether your business has 50, 100, 200, however many people, those 200 people depend on you to put food on their table. I mean, that's a big responsibility, and I think that creates a level of stress for anyone. Now, some people are more easily able to handle that stress than others. And so again, this is an area where you have to be confident that you are going to be able to handle the stresses of running a business. The third challenge is that it's really just a difficult process in general. I mean, you've got so many different variables that are working against you that it's very hard to get all those variables aligned and ultimately close the deal. You've got competing interests and viewpoints and personalities of the seller. You've got the dynamics of what the business is doing. On top of that, it's hard to find businesses that are for sale. We all know numerous businesses, and oftentimes the ones that are the easiest to find and easiest ones to determine that they are in fact for sale are oftentimes the ones that are least attractive to potentially purchase. Suffice it to say, even if you are risk tolerant, even if you can handle the stress of all the ups and downs of trying to buy a business, it's just a lot of hard work and it takes a lot of time. This is not a get rich quick scheme at all. You have really got to put in the work, not just today, not just tomorrow, not just this month, but this year, maybe even next year. Again, like I said, it took us, I think, over 2 years for us to buy our first business. And on the one hand, should I beat myself up for it taking so long? I'm never going to do that because I don't know what the stats are, but at one point I read that 90% of people that try to buy a business ultimately fail. I'm not saying a 10% success rate is amazing and I should be patting myself on the back, but at the very least, I'm happy to be a part of the 10% as opposed to the 90%. The final challenge is that I firmly believe it requires a little bit of luck. We've all been in a situation where we meet somebody and it's really serendipitous. We don't know why our paths crossed, or it was just a really good meeting that day for whatever reason, but I don't know how else to say it. I just think that it requires a little bit of luck. I feel like if you put in the hard work, not just today, not just this week, but over an extended period of time, you're positioning yourself to get lucky. But again, just because you put in the hard work does not guarantee success, in my opinion. The ball is going to have to take the right bounce at 1 or 2 points throughout the process. That's at least my personal opinion. What does it take from a personality standpoint in order to be successful? I've hinted at some of these, but I would say the first one is risk tolerance. Definitely have hit that one over the head a lot. It's risky, it's hard, you gotta be comfortable signing on the dotted line and understanding that the livelihood of many people is up to you, and you've got to be able to step up to the plate and perform. The second one is that you need to be even-keeled. The process of buying a business is very much like a roller coaster. You could be moving along at a nice steady clip and you think everything is great, and then you get a phone call and boom, the floor drops out from underneath you. On the flip side, you could think the deal is never going to happen, or maybe the deal is completely dead, and a week or two later you get a call and the sellers want to start talks again. I mean, it is not for the faint of heart. And this is also a type of business where you don't give updates every day, because everything changes within, if not within the day, perhaps even, within the hour or the minute. Definitely an even-keeled personality, I feel, a requirement to be successful in the long term in this endeavor. The third aspect is persistence combined with a comfort around failing. I would say that throughout my career, I have failed a lot. I mean, I failed pretty much in everything I've tried, at least once or twice. And I'm not happy to admit that. I'm not laughing to say that it's inconsequential or whatnot. I'm just, saying it because to me, looking at my career, sure, I've had some successes, but man, I have had far more failures. I do believe that all those failures help develop me, help build me into a stronger person that's ultimately going to be able to take on bigger and bigger challenges. I'm not happy that I had those failures, but I guess I'm confident that I'm going to learn from those. But even so, I hear no on a daily basis. I hear whether it's from not winning a new customer, to a seller that doesn't want to sell to us, to a lender that's given us issues on our bank line or whatever. There's just a lot of examples of challenges and negativity that you got to deal with. And if you're not comfortable hearing no, then I think you should really reconsider whether or not buying a business is for you. And I think this is actually doubly important for the audience that is considering buying a business, because I think most of the folks that would consider buying a business have had a lot of success in their career. I mean, come on, if you haven't had some level of success, how would you have the capital or the experience needed in order to buy a business? For this group, failure might be something new. So it's just something to keep in mind throughout the process. The final component that's helpful. I certainly don't think it's perhaps as much of a requirement, but this one is just about being creative. I often use the phrase that, some of the people that I work with, they are looking for a reason to say no. And it's my job to be creative, come up with new ideas, so that it's harder and harder for them to say no, and ultimately try and get them into a position where they want to say yes. Creativity can take its form in many different ways. It can be in the transaction structure that you agree to with the seller. It can be in some of the language that's in the asset purchase agreement. It can be just a different strategy that you take in terms of how to identify businesses that are for sale. This one's really hard for me to say the 3 to 5 ways that you need to be creative, but I think here the point is just that building on the fact that you're going to hear no a lot, and also my belief that luck is required in this process. If you can be creative and think about new approaches to solving problems, I think that that's going to increase your likelihood for success in this endeavor. As a self-described most boring guy in private equity, I completely understand that some of you guys watch my videos simply to help you fall asleep. That's fine. I have no beef about that, because I still get a view. However, if you're serious about building generational wealth and would like to discuss this more, please email me. While you're at it, please hit the like and subscribe.